Hi, good evening. This is Elizabeth Hanson. I'm your host for Keto Confab, a weekly meeting for those who are trying to live the keto lifestyle. It is January the 12th of 2022. And tonight I thought we would discuss what happens when we're trying to share our keto journey with other people. How do they react? What kind of things are they worried about with keto? Like, oh, doesn't that do this or that? And how you respond to them. So I'll start us off with what happened with me yesterday. Yesterday I was at a funeral, and Monday I was at a viewing, and one of the aunts of the person who had passed away, I know her, and she came up to me and she said, "Oh, you look so great. I haven't seen you in a long time. You've lost a lot of weight." Oh, and I'm like, "Yes, I have, and it's been great, and I'm planning to lose more." And she says, "Well, how did you do it?" And so I explained to her what keto is, and how I got to keto through Dr. Boz, and everything. And she's like, "Well, it, isn't that um, something that ruins your nutrition and you get anemic and weak and everything?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." No, 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 no. That's all the junk food and chocolate I was eating before that does that too. And then she told me that her husband, she had to put him in a nursing home a year before because of his dementia. And he says, "Well, all he would eat in the end was bread. He wanted toast, he wanted sandwiches, he wanted bread smeared with whatever she could find to put on it. And he would put weird things on there, like he would cover it with butter and just sprinkle sugar all over it, and everything." And I'm like, "Well, you know, he might be helped by keto, but the thing I'm going to say is you need to help yourself stay out of the nursing home and stay away from dementia." And so she had me write down the name of Dr. Boz's book and the website and everything. And so she was okay once she got over the malnutrition idea of keto being malnourishing. um, then yesterday I was at a funeral, and again it was like, "Wow, you look so good. Wow, you've lost so much weight. What did you do?" And I told them, "Well, I've done keto." And she was like, "Oh, you have to be careful with that. I hear that ruins your kidneys." And I'm like, "No, no, it actually can rescue your kidneys from um, what's been happening to them." And she's like, "No, I'm sure it ruins your kidneys." And I'm like, "Well, here's the deal. There's blood work called GFR, where they take several values from your blood work, and they add them together and do this ratio, and they come up with a picture of what your kidney health is. And I was in stage 1 kidney disease before I started keto. My number was like 54, and it needs to be above 60 to be without disease. And when I had my blood work done in October, when I was sick with COVID, my number was 88. And when I had my number done back in June, my number was 70 something. So my kidneys are getting healthier on keto the longer I stay on it. And she says, "Well, maybe it was the liver. Maybe it destroys the liver." And I'm like, "Okay, no." Um, my liver numbers were at the top number of normal. I mean, I think one of them goes to 35. I was at 36, and another one goes to 50 something. And I was like 4 numbers above that 50 number before I started keto. And now I am in the 20s or below. I think the one that was 35, I'm down to 15 now when I did blood work while I was sick with keto. So keto is resolving my health issues. It's resolved my liver issue, my kidney issues. My blood pressure is finally in range of being what's considered normal. Um, it used to be 180, 190 all the time. I didn't have a problem with the diastolic, the bottom number. It was always the top number that was the problem. But now I'm usually somewhere between 120 and 150, unless I do something like not sleep or not drink water. If I don't drink water or if I don't sleep enough, then my blood pressure goes up. But keto has not caused a problem. So that's my experience with talking to people about keto and their reactions. They're like that you're going to be malnourished, or you're going to ruin your kidneys or your liver or something, and um, your heart is going to be weakened somehow. And how I explain to them how I've recovered. And if any of you have someone say kidney disease or liver disease, use my story to talk to them, because I'm a poster child for keto saving my kidneys and livers. Livers, I only have one. Um, anyway, so Julie or Virginia, you want to hop in and tell us about sharing keto with people and what their reactions are, and what maybe concerns they have?
Well, I I was on keto before, just to give a little background. I was on keto before, and when I had my blood work done, I had never had such good numbers. Across the board, there was nothing that was out of kilter. And I haven't had it done since I started in August, but 2 years ago when I was on keto and lost weight, that's I knew that it was the place for me just because my labs were perfect. And I thought, oh, wow. And then I don't know, things get in the way and you just go back to eating like you always did. But anyway, um, I've mentioned it a few times, and I'm usually I can't go without my carbs. That's just too strict. That's most of the time what I get. And I said, well, I would say to them, if you tried it for a week, if you gave it a week's try, you would probably not have the cravings that you think you have, nor would you have the low blood sugar problem. Like you say, you get jittery and you get shaky. And I said, if you tried keto for a week to 2 weeks, you probably would not have that. You could go without eating and not even realize it.
Mhm.
Well, that's just too restrictive. Many people tell me that I just can't go without carbs. Um, and I've had people tell me that it's going to wreck my cholesterol. It's going to hurt my heart. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. And I'm like, I don't know, because my numbers were never as good as they were when I was on keto. All of it. And my fatty liver, it's gotten a lot better. I don't have to worry about having a fatty liver. I still have problems with um, insulin resistance, and that's not something that happened overnight. So I'm going to guess it's not something that's going to clear up overnight either. And um, some people want to know about it, and some people don't ask.
Mhm.
And others tell you that it's too restrictive. I don't normally have too many people telling me that it's going to hurt this or hurt that. They just don't want to go without the carbs. Uh, but for me, that's what I've found so far. I try to just gently bring it into conversation and tell them that I don't have the joint pain I used to have. I can go up and down the stairs without my knees hurting. I have a lot more energy. I can fit into places I didn't fit before. Because in my job, I work as an EMS, and sometimes you got to squeeze into tight places. And get around people. And so, I try to explain to them, and a lot of people are worried that I've lost too much weight too fast. I'm like, I feel good, and I haven't gotten any. I might have one person convinced to try it out with me. So we'll see how that goes.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Anyone else?
that's true, Julie. A lot of people have said to me, "Oh, I couldn't give up my pasta,
Right.
or potatoes. If I didn't eat potatoes, I'd have nothing to eat." That I've had one person tell me, a vegetarian. She says, "If I didn't eat potatoes," I'm like, "Oh my, okay." Good luck with
Probably
that.
the worst one. The one that you should give up the most is a potato
Yeah, well, and the chocolate. Well, the sugar.
and the chocolate. Right.
Yeah. Jenny or anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. Well, when somebody says, "Well, what are you doing?" I say keto. I say, "Oh, well, what diet are you on now?" Because over the years I've been on every diet you can imagine. And then I say keto, and they say, "Well," and I try to explain. They said, "Was that like Atkins?" I said, "Well, Atkins is not. This is not high protein. It's moderate protein, but high fat." Well, that's going to give you heart disease. It's going to clog up your arteries, and you're just going to die of a stroke or a heart attack. I said, "Well, I don't think so." But and then I tell them about Dr. Boz, and I did low carb or kind of keto that was basically just low carb or net carbs for about 3 years. And I lost about 30 pounds. And then I found Dr. Boz in August of last year and went to the total carbs. And so that was a little hard for just about a week or so, but not very far. And then without really even trying to lose weight, I lost another 18 pounds. And now I'm not trying to lose any more weight. This is just for health reasons, for skin cancers. And so, because I've got a lot of those. And I've had breast cancer. I don't want to get that again. And I would think I've said before, my family never really lived long enough to know whether or not there's Alzheimer's in my family, because most of them died before they were 75, and I'll be 75 in a couple of months. And I'm pretty active and I'm pretty healthy. And when our family goes on walk, my 12-year-old granddaughter catches up to me because I'm always in the front. She says, "I'm walking with you, Graham, because you're the healthy one." And that just makes me feel so good because she's trim, but she and I are the only ones in our family that are.
Oh,
My granddaughters have PCOS and I can't get them to eat low carb. And I mean, and one of them is married, the other one isn't. And I'm so afraid that they're going to have trouble having children because of the PCOS and so forth. But I'm just going to try to be an example. But when I say keto, their eyes roll back in their heads. So when they ask me about something, I'll say low carb. And that's the way, and I will be an example to them. I'm due to have labs and doctor's appointments at the very end of January. So I don't know what my lab numbers are, but they've always been really pretty good. So, but I'll see what my cholesterol is, because since I have been such strict keto for the last, well, actually I started like the time that I had labs in. So we'll see how the labs are at the end of the month. I think I have my labs on the 24th, but then I don't get the results of them until the 31st. So at the beginning of February, I'll start talking about all my labs and see how good they are.
yeah. Our lab work when we go to the doctor is really telling, but I was at the doctor on Friday for my 3-month recheck from COVID. Help if I brought the microphone down. I was at the lab. I was at the doctor, and she's like, "Well, you've gained a few pounds after since you were here after COVID," because I lost like 12 or 15 pounds while I was ill with COVID.
You were sick.
Well, I had diarrhea. And I had to go to the clinic, and I was, of course, my weight was 12, 15 pounds less than I had been at the last visit. And so now she's scolding me for being that 12, 15 pounds again. And I'm like, hello. I used to weigh 320 pounds a year ago. So at this weight, 240, I'm okay. I'm good, don't get mad at me, and I said, I came in when I was still ill. I wasn't eating what I normally eat or anything, but, and she says, well, so she did not believe me. She looked up on the computer and she says, oh, you were that overweight. Wow. And I said, yeah. And she says, but your cholesterol was bad. I see the labs here. Your cholesterol was bad. I'm like, lady, it's 238,
Yeah.
and my LDL and HDL are both in the normal range. And she's like, oh, well, do you want to have a heart attack? Do you want to have all sorts of problems? And I'm like, no, please notice in the last year, I lost 100 pounds. So I won't have a heart attack and have problems. And she's like, well, I want to check your A1C. And I'm like, go ahead. And she's like, you think it's good? And I'm like, well, something crazy would have had to have happened. And she's, well, it's been 6 months since we tested it. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, knock yourself out. But it was 4.7. And she's like, she's looking at this fat woman. And I say my A1C is 4.7. She doesn't believe me. She's on the computer. She's looking, oh, it was 4.7. Wow, that's good. But what was it before? And I'm like 6.4. And she says, so she finds my old record from a year ago, and yeah, it was 6.4. She says, you brought it down from 6.4 to 4.7 in a year. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I told you, I've changed my lifestyle. I'm on keto now. Oh, well, we better look at your liver numbers and your kidney numbers and everything. Yeah, I'm going to get a bunch of blood work done on you. And I'm like, oh, go ahead. Anyway, all right, I digress. So anybody else want to talk to us about when you tell people about keto and what you've been doing, what they respond with, what their concerns are about doing keto?
I have a few. I've had a couple people tell me, well, they're currently on some sort of diet right now that's working for them, and so they don't really think that they'd want to try this necessarily. Although I had one individual who's on a diet right now, but he was still interested, and he said he's going to try it, and I'm gonna have to get back with him and see how he's doing. And some people will say, well, it's too restrictive. I mean, you're cutting out a lot of food out of your diet, and the other thing is, I saw an article on the internet. I forget whether it was in Yahoo News or something like this, but some dietitian was saying that that keto is not really good, and their main, well, the main thing they said that I remember anyway was that if you're going to cut out a major food group out of your diet, that's just not good. And the thing is, remember the USDA, and so I was yelling at the screen, well, yeah, if that major diet is killing you, if that quote food group is killing you, well then yeah, so, but the thing is, I mean, we are, to be honest, we are cutting out fruit for the most part, except for avocados, but
And
for the most part,
tomatoes.
And berries.
yeah. But I mean, now the berries do have a certain amount of carb content, though. Which specific ones are you?
Well, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, blueberries. You can
Well,
use those
I
in
think that
moderation.
I think the strawberries have considerable carb, don't they? Maybe I'm wrong. You know, so I think, you know, one would have to have a good answer for something like that, you know. But the whole, of course, I mean, you know, we've gone over, you know, the whole USDA food pyramid thing and how, yeah, even though the biggest chunk of that is carbohydrate, we know that that's not really what you should be eating. But anyway, so, you know, a person will, let's see, someone, so, well, you know, and another thing we've talked about was, well, people say, well, I'm a vegetarian, and it might be too hard to do as a vegetarian, or someone might say they're vegan, you know, and yeah, I mean, if you are really committed to being a vegan, yeah, I admit, it may be tough to do keto if you're a vegan. Yeah. But if you're a vegetarian, it's not really, because, you know, if you're a vegetarian who is willing to eat eggs and dairy, then I don't think it's a major problem, actually. But anyway, some people will say, well, I've heard it's dangerous. And, you know, we've covered that as well. You know, and it's kind of funny, you know, earlier today, Becky and I were joking that, you know, let's see, what is that now? More people have heard that keto is dangerous than know where Washington D.C. is, or who's buried in Grant's tomb. You know, I mean, the American people are so woefully ignorant about a lot of really, or how many branches of government we have. I mean, it's scary to know how few people even know how many branches of government we have. But boy, it seems like, you know, a huge chunk of the population has heard that keto is dangerous. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I had that happen. One of my friends, she was like congratulating herself because she finally, you know, lost some weight. And I said, well, you try keto. And oh, keto is terrible for you. I'm a dietitian. I know how bad it is for you. And I'm like, but if you do the research, it's not. I mean, if you stop thinking about that and just research keto and where it came from and why it came about, then you'll find out that it's really not dangerous.
did she mention where she's getting that from? I mean, is there in one of their courses, are they telling them this? You know, you got to be,
I don't know.
You got to be wary of keto because that is dangerous. I mean, you know,
It's probably from the bread consortium, you know.
yeah, or the
Wonder
USDA
Bread,
or something, you know,
yeah,
right?
or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I'm pretty sure that the people who manufacture bread, pasta, crackers, cookies, cereal, I'm pretty sure, you know, I'm pretty sure Kellogg's and what's that guy, Quaker Oats people,
yeah.
probably Nabisco, don't like the keto diet because that cuts all of their stuff out.
Well, also the soybean board.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, the
I know,
soybean
well,
board.
yeah, back when we lived in Illinois, I mean, the soybean board in the state of Illinois is really, they have some real political clout. Yeah. And you know how, I mean, you know, you used to see commercials about, you know, oh, you got to drink your milk for healthy, you know, strong bones and teeth, you know, and that's the American Dairy Council. I mean, they have a vested interest in you drinking milk. And so, you know, it's unfortunate, but a lot of this stuff we're told is we're being told from a source that has a vested interest in telling us that. So, but anyway, you know, let's see, I have something else. Oh, some people say, I've tried it and it didn't work. And you know, and so we're going to throw our daughter under the bus. I mean,
yeah, let's throw our daughter under the bus.
Oh, I tried it and it didn't. Also, she was concerned about us going on keto because she heard it was dangerous.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for her. She felt awful.
She wrote me a pleading email, Mom,
right.
this
Right.
is dangerous. You have a lot of health issues and stuff. And I'm like, sweetie, I'm never going to solve them continuing to eat the way I am.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
I mean,
I'm,
you had a lot of health issues eating the way you were before. I mean,
yeah, I had a host of health issues.
Yeah.
If they were
Right.
actual people, we could invite them to dinner.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They'd have
Yeah.
names.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Like relatives that never leave.
yes, yes.
You invite them for the
House
holidays
guests.
and they never leave.
Yeah, house guests you hate. Yeah. No, really, our oldest daughter was very concerned at us going keto, especially me, because I've had heart palpitations in the past and I had high blood pressure and I
Right.
was pre-diabetic and I have lymph issues and I'm fat, you know. So I mean anything could happen. And it was very sweet of her to be concerned about me, but I did my research and I read books, I watched all sorts of videos, and I felt convinced this was the way I was to go. And then when I dared to share one of Dr. Boz's videos, she critiqued the video and we had a huge fight about it because she felt that Dr. Boz was a charlatan and just trying to sell her book and her products. And because she mentioned the book on her webcast, you know, the
Yeah.
podcast and everything. And my daughter went way, way too far. And we had a huge blow up over it. And I told her, okay, I'm doing this, whether you want me to or not. I am not stupid or foolish, and I am never going to suggest Dr. Boz or Dr. Boz's books or anything else to you about keto because you are keto resistant and you can just continue to be your 190
Okay.
pound self. And
We had a very frank and honest discussion.
yes, you can just continue to be your 190 pound self when you should really weigh 160 and be miserable because she tells me she doesn't like being overweight. Well, hello. But yeah, she was not following the Boz method and she got a terrible case of keto flu. And she was very interested in, instead of eating just gluten-free bread, but finding a keto bread to eat. Not really changing her life, but finding keto crackers and keto cookies and keto bread and keto
I
pudding.
gotta
And,
go.
all right. God bless and good luck.
Thank you.
So she wanted to eat her same diet and find all the
Yes.
substitutes.
Yeah.
And
Eat the
that's
same
not what
diet.
the point, that's not what the point is.
No. Well, so many do that. So many do that and they think they're doing keto, but you know, just like Jenny said, Jenny was on net carbs for a long time. And yes, she lost weight. She probably felt better than she did before she went net carbs. But true keto for healing, is really changing your lifestyle and accepting that crackers and cookies and pudding and pie and cake are not really going to be part of that lifestyle anymore.
And it's total carbs, not net carbs.
Right. It's total carbs, not net carbs. So
Because
Tammy,
if you have,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I was making cakes and mug cakes and all that kind of stuff with almond flour and coconut flour and I did feel better.
yes.
Because I really wasn't having too much, all that extra sugar. But once I went to total carbs, I'm feeling even 100% better than I did then.
I think
So,
when
but
people
it
start
was-
out, they do need to do that. They do need to find substitutes for their favorite things so they don't feel deprived. And I'm not talking, but 6 months down the road, you need to start getting rid of those things because you don't really need them. You're not hungry and you don't crave them anymore. At the
Well,
beginning, you do crave them. And if you're going to go eat a chocolate cake, or if you're going to make a mug cake with almond flour, then use the almond flour thing and make a 1 serving thing instead of buying that cake or
Right.
pie or something. But but that needs to lessen as time goes on, not keep it up forever.
And it did. And what really cured me, basically cured me of those kinds of things. I got a box of sugar-free chocolate, and it was a pretty big box. And instead of having one serving, I had like the whole thing.
Oops.
And I like Dr. Boz in one of her books, I was sick all night long in the bathroom, and nothing gives me the runs. I can fast for 5 days and eat whatever I want to on the refeeding, and it doesn't send me to the bathroom like with everybody else. But boy, that box of chocolate sugar, well, it was, the sugar alcohol. Oh, I had such cramps, and I was sick to my stomach at both ends. And I thought, oh, and I said, no more of this. Just, I'm done with any sugar alcohol, any artificial sweeteners. I do use stevia a little bit every once in a while, but none of that other stuff, none of those other substitutions. So, I mean, and I said, oh, that was so awful. It was just memorable.
But you had to learn your lesson that way. If you hadn't done that, you might still be eating them.
You might be right. So.
Yeah. So Tammy, how does it go when you talk to people about keto? What do they have to say?
I don't usually ever have any problems with people ever saying anything to me. Sometimes my husband was probably the worst one. I've told you that he's not on keto and he's the cook, and he goes, well, now you're not going to eat potatoes and you're not going to eat stuff. And I said, you know what? You still cook what you want to cook and you eat what you want to eat. I'm just not going to. And don't stop making your potatoes, or don't start making a baked potato. I mean, you continue to eat what you want to eat because I can't control what you eat. But I'm not going to. And he does. He will make biscuits and gravy and stuff in the mornings, and I don't eat it. And so he was really the worst one. I've never had any bad experiences like what you guys said, dude. So, I did have one little problem. You were talking about blood tests with your doctor, and this last time I went in for blood tests, which would have been, I was on keto for over a year, and she wanted me to go on a statin because my LDL was so high. But I'm looking at my blood test. My triglycerides were 65 and my HDL was 95. And she wanted me to go on a statin, and I'm like, no. So when I read the notes of your doctor visit, like the next day, or you're online looking at them, I think she wrote in there 4 times that I refused a statin. Because they have to do that because, it's the standard of care to do that. And I just refused. And I said, no, I'm not going on a statin, but I will have a coronary artery test. I have a day off next month for President's Day. So I think I want to do it on my day off. I better call and make an appointment.
One of those CAC tests?
Yeah.
That one? Oh, okay. Well, I'll be interested in that one because that would be interesting. Yeah. They've suggested a statin to me before because my cholesterol used to be 289, or 250, over the last 2 years. That's where the numbers were hitting. But I've always refused. And yes, they write it in your chart. Patient refused to go on a statin. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
But that's what my cholesterol went up to. My cholesterol went up to 281 my last time. And it went up a great amount. My it went from my LDL went from 138 to 173, but they don't count that my HDL went up, and that's the good cholesterol, and it's almost 100. It's 95. Yeah. They don't count, that my good cholesterol is 95.
You should get extra points for that.
I know I should. So when it went up to 281, they called and wanted me to put me on a statin, and I'm like, no. I've read too many books about all the problems with statins. I think you have more problems with statins, and there's no proven benefit to being on it. People that have heart attacks have low cholesterol, high cholesterol, and they're even on a statin, and it doesn't stop them.
Yeah. And that's what I told my doctor on Friday. I'm like, you can try putting me on a statin, but good luck with that because I react to a lot of medications, and statins have a history of causing reactions with people, and I don't do well on drugs that have a history of causing a reaction. I react to drugs that have no history of causing reactions, you know. So I said to her, "You think you're going to put me on a statin? That's just crazy. I mean, you might as well just start an IV of cocaine or something, you know, that's gonna kill me but anyway, I'm gonna get blood work done next week again. I didn't do it this week, but I'll do it next week and we'll see where I stand. But I'm not gonna take a statin, and I don't think it risks my life to not take a statin.
No,
I just,
and I'm gonna go in next month too for blood work. I think I mentioned that I went off of my allopurinol for
Mhm.
high uric acid.
Right.
And I stopped taking it, and she said to come back in 90 days and see how it went. So I'll be interested to see if it went up a lot
Mhm.
or went up at all.
Mhm.
And I might, if it does go up, I might have to go back on it. I've been on it for 10 years or more. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that's always one that Dr. Boz talks about is high uric acid or
Mhm.
uric acid.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that I don't get gout, knock on wood, that I'm not one of the people on keto that tend to get gout, because I do know one person who's doing keto and did get gout in their foot, and it's just very painful. And
Well, I have high uric acid and I've never had a gout attack. And people, and
really,
you can have, yeah, my uric acid was 10 when I had a blood test one time, and he's like, oh, 10, that's really bad. But I've never had a gout attack. I just took it because it was 10.
yeah,
But then people can have gout attacks without having excessively high uric acid. So yes, there is a correlation between them, but not everybody that has high uric acid has a gout attack.
oh, okay,
I mean, I never did, and I was at 10. So,
okay. And Jenny
well, it's
says
not.
she was at 10, so
Did she have?
anyway.
Did she have an attack? The
Actually, my
Bigfoot.
uric acid was 10.5, and no, I don't have any gout symptoms at all, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had too. Did you take drugs for it?
No,
Oh, is it still high?
well, the last time I checked it a couple of months after that, it was 9.9. So
Mhm.
it comes down so slowly. And Dr. Boz was talking about that at something the other
About
day.
she wants it under 5, I think.
She wants it 4.5,
Yeah.
but she said sometimes when it starts coming down, when you start reducing the inflammation, the crystals as they're getting smaller, they get basically what it sounded like she was saying to me, they kind of get loose. And then they get settled into something that's causing pain
Oh, okay.
as you're healing.
Hmm.
So if I start having gout attack, then I'll go and get maybe some allopurinol to lessen it quicker. But at
Yeah.
this point, no. And it's the same thing with kidney stones. People say, well, they get kidney stones from keto, but
Hmm.
it's because they're reducing the inflammation and they get a little bit loose,
Hmm.
and then they go in places they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
They cause pain because the kidney stones in themselves are not in a place that they're supposed to be, but they start as they're moving and getting smaller, then they cause problems and cause pain. So that's how she explained it.
Yeah. I remember her saying that about kidney stones.
So it's the
And
same thing with the gout crystals.
yeah, and that people who have active gout inflammation that causes pain need to just very slowly and carefully go into keto. And the same thing with people who already have had kidney stone attacks. They just need to be aware. They have to really pump the water. They have to slowly cut down on their carbs. And they have to be careful not to do this yo-yo thing where most days they eat low carbs, but then they'll hit the carbs hard because they go to a friend's house for dinner and don't want to be insulting not to eat the pasta, you know, and everything, because she said the yo-yoing causes problems with the uric acid and the kidney stones. So, Patricia or Wilma, you guys got anything to add to the convo?
Now you guys, I'm going to take you off on a little tangent here, but please be patient with me. You
Do I
remember
need my boots?
I have my contact with Germany, you know,
Mhm, mhm,
and we watch German TV a lot.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I could not believe at Christmas time, there was like a little commercial for children. Actually, it was actually for children. It was sort of geared for lower intelligence. And they were talking about how when the cows eat the grass, they use up all of the nutrients from the fields. And it's so much better not to eat meat, because then you just eat the soy and the corn and the wheat, and you can use the fields and you can feed lots and lots more people. And they were showing with all these diagrams how, you know, these fields can feed thousands more people if you don't let the cows eat the
grass.
grains.
Uh-huh.
And so then we had this conversation with our German friends the other day, and I was telling her that I'm mostly keto. I'm actually more carnivore than I am keto. And she said, "Are you eating meat?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You're using up all the world's resources. Don't you know that?" And it's like, well, every German child knows, probably every European child knows, don't eat meat, because all the world's resources are being eaten up by the cows. And I'm telling you, this is, we're going to have to learn how to defend ourselves, because it's propaganda for the children in Europe. And
Well, what
one of
about
the
the
things,
milk? What about the cow's milk?
well,
Do they get milk and cheese?
they do use cheese, but I don't know. The whole idea of eating more soy and more wheat because more people can get fed, I need to brush up. There's evidently some people that have proven that it's actually more nutritious to eat meat than to eat soy and wheat and corn. But there's one other feature I want to tell you about.
Okay.
I'm in a prayer group, and the group has decided to do the Daniel fast, which is basically no meat, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables. And I just kept my mouth shut, because, you know, they're just going on and on and on about how Daniel did it. And of course, we should all do it like Daniel did.
But did they explain
like,
why
you know,
Daniel didn't? Did they explain that? That Daniel didn't want to eat the meat because all of the animal flesh had been offered to the idols first, and he didn't want to eat the meat.
Well, you know how these people, I'm just saying that the problem is big. There's just a small group of us that don't believe in eating soy and wheat and corn. Everybody else seems to be thinking that this is the way to go, and it's also the more ethical thing to do.
I just listened to a cardiologist, and these words actually came out of his mouth. He says, grains are bad. No more grains. Don't eat the grains. And if you're not a baby, you don't need the milk. He says, eat some meat. And I'm like, oh, a cardiologist that believes in eating meat. He says it's much better on the heart than the grains. The grains are very bad on the heart.
I did want to give
Dr. Jamades or something like that.
Yes, yeah. The one Dr.
He's so funny.
He is hilarious. I've been enjoying watching his videos.
I did want to give one good report, though.
Yes.
My son, he was over, and I served everyone's ribeyes, which he loves. And then, you know, I don't eat, I'd made potatoes for them and, you know, other vegetables. I don't eat them, but he said, there's no vitamin C in meat. I said, oh, yes, there is. He said, you can't get vitamin C if you just eat meat. I said, yes, you can. Look it up. There's plenty, you get everything you need from meat. So that was one thing. Another thing is I told my brother, you know, I told you I have 6 siblings. I told my brother that I fought with the doctor and did the CAC exam, and I ended up with a score of 0.
Oh.
So he went to his doctor and he called me up. He said, Patricia, what did you tell me your score was? And I said 0. And he said, I got a 2.4. I
Is
said,
that good or
good.
bad?
That's really good. You know, they say if you get over 400, then you really need to get on a statin.
Oh,
But he got a 2.4. So he started, at least he believed me enough to go take the test, which is really good.
hey,
So-
do you guys know how long Dr. Boz says to wait until you do the CAC test? Because she said, don't do that right away. You know, in her book, Keto Continuum, David went in and did it right away before he'd been on keto even a week, and it was bad. So how long does she say you should wait to be on keto before you do that? Does anybody know?
I don't remember at all anything about that.
Okay.
No, I don't either. Ginny, I just have to ask you, I'm sorry, but aren't you part of Dr. Boz's Tuesday group?
Yes. I'm lucky enough to live an hour away from where her office is, so I get to go over there for her Tuesday morning support groups. Yes.
Are you enjoying it?
Oh, yes. There are people that drive for 2.5 hours to come to that. And it's an 8 o'clock meeting in the morning and for an hour.
Yeah, I have a friend here in North Carolina. She said she would drive down there if she could talk her husband into doing it. It's a 10-hour drive.
Well, that's a little much.
But I really am envious. I know that she's just a pocket full of information. It must be wonderful to hear that every week.
I feel so blessed.
Yeah. So Wilma, do you want to say anything this week or no? It's fine if you don't, but I want to give you the opportunity. Oh, you're muted, honey. There
I
you
don't
are.
have much to add. I just have people telling me I'm going to get sick, I'm going to die, I'm going to have a heart attack, let's say I'm going to crash because I can't eat this way. So I just kind of tell people I'm losing weight and I'm doing low carb and drop it.
Yeah, it's just like, leave me alone. Well, okay, so any questions anybody has, any comments, anything you want?
I had one more thing I wanted to mention.
Sure.
I had mentioned that I wanted to try to do this sardine fast,
Oh, yeah.
and I did it.
Oh,
I did it one day last week. I went 36 hours,
okay.
and all I had was 1 can of sardines.
Okay.
You know, I tell you, I go to the YMCA and I do the exercise, and I was so hungry, and I had that can of sardines. I lost 5 pounds
Wow.
just by that one attempt. So, you know, Dr. Boz says you just have to change the routine up a little bit, you know, add a little stress somewhere.
Mhm.
And boy, that was a nice little surprise to me.
Eating sardines is a stress.
Well, it was a change up from my day. You know, I'm normally 2 meal a day and I finish by 3 o'clock.
Mhm.
So if I know you can't, but anyone else that can stand sardines.
Oh,
it-
I like sardines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then
I
maybe
just-
try that one time.
Yeah. Maybe I should do sardine fast for like 3 or 4 days and then go back to the doctor and drop that 15 pounds so she won't be mad.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna work like that.
Yeah, I know. You can't guarantee it's going to work like that for me. So,
Yeah.
but hey, it's worth a try, huh? So
Yeah.
anyway, Scott, you unmuted yourself.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to mention, another thing is that people might say, well, there's too much fat associated with the keto. I mean, because you're eating, tons of butter and, bacon for those people that are eating bacon, and the other thing is, I mean, you'll see on TV or something, where there's kind of a running joke about, if a person that eats, a lot of red meat, or they eat a big hamburger that has bacon and stuff, they call it the heart attack special or something, because it's got all that fat in it. And so, I mean, even, we joke about, how a large fat intake is just a coronary waiting to happen. And so, I mean, the campaign to vilify fat has been very successful for the past 60 years. Meanwhile, sugar's okay. Although, I mean, I think there always have been at least a few people that have said that too much sugar is not very good for you. But so I mean, if so if you talk to people specifically about the diet and how how fat is actually good for you, and it's the carbohydrates that are bad for you, you might get that reaction, because we really, I mean, as a culture, we vilify fat, and all the low fat stuff is supposedly good for you, and I mean, if in general people say, oh, I'm trying to take care of myself, I'm trying to eat healthy, and so I'm having low fat cottage cheese rather than whatever, or I'm having low fat milk or skim milk rather than regular milk, and so if you tell someone that you're eating a diet that has a lot of fat, then I mean, naturally they're going to be alarmed, just because of the messages that we've received for literally 60 years.
Mhm. The other thing I was thinking about this whole low fat thing is I used to run a La Leche League group, and that's for mothers who are breastfeeding their babies. And I, would talk about the benefits of breast milk, and the makeup of breast milk is that it is very fatty. And the studies have shown that babies do better, their brain development and everything is better with a fatty milk diet, well, breast milk diet. And so if for our infants, the best thing for them is a high fat diet, why do we think that changes once they're no longer infants? I mean, the proportion of fat. And so I just thought that was interesting. In fact, I have a couple of clients who have preemies in the NICU right now, and they're trying to get their preemies to breastfeed. And the nurses are like, well, yes, if you want to breastfeed, we're going to feed baby breast milk because it's got a higher fat content. And since they were premature, they need that fat content for their brains. And I'm like, well, then we probably need the fat content for our brains. And, the imaging and stuff that Dr. Boz has shown us shows that the fat really helps our brains work more consistently and better. And so, yeah, demonizing fat is something that happens all the time. And, I've had people say, but I'm worried about heart disease. My dad or my brother or my mom or my whole family had heart disease, and I don't want to die of heart disease like them. And I'm like, okay, well then put down the cookies and leave the pudding and cake and pie and bread at the store, if you want to avoid heart disease. Anyway, Well, it's 8:01. And if nobody else has any other comments or something to add or anything, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to an end. And I'll see you all next week. And
Yeah,
everybody
one
take
thing,
care.
the same thing about eggs, you know, you talk about, oh, you know, eat a lot of eggs
Oh,
on keto.
yeah.
Well, they say, oh, the cholesterol, you know. And even, I mean, years ago, you know, even way before keto, you know, I was, for a number of years, I would eat eggs for breakfast, you know, like every day or every other day. You know, I'd have like 4 eggs, you know, scrambled eggs, 4 or 5 scrambled eggs, you know, for breakfast. And I mean, my cholesterol was always good, you know. And so, you know, that's another thing. I mean, eggs, you know, the cholesterol. I mean, you're just going to die of, you know, you're going to die of cholesterol if you eat too many eggs, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, we're going to test the whole cholesterol thing next week when I get blood work, because I eat a lot of eggs and I eat meat. And so I guess we're going to find out with my blood work how that went. Anyway, all right, everybody, I'm going to end the recording and then I'll see you next week. All right. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.